Welcome back, friends. Today we're painting a beach landscape. You're going to need a bright blue for the water, a little bit of a darker blue for the sky, and some sand color. We'll show you how to mix that in this tutorial. Let's get started.
All right.
Okay, so all you need, if you're painting right along with us, is some watercolor paper. We've taped ours down to the surface of the desk here. This is 5 by 7 inch paper by Strathmore. You'll need some paper towel for blotting. Each of you will need a watercolor paintbrush. We're using round brushes. They work really great. You'll need a water jar and some watercolor paints. I like to spritz mine with water so they're ready to go. Now for our ocean scene, we're going to decide where to put our water line, our sky, our water, and our sand. I'm going to have the sky coming about a third of the way down. And to mark that, you can actually use tape. Just the same tape we use for taping our papers down. So rip off a little piece like that, and we're going to put it right across our paper. So we have about a third of the top part blocked off just for the sky. Okay, so go ahead and do that. This is the best way to get a perfectly straight horizon line. Of course, you have to put your tape on straight.
Oh, I think my piece is
too
too small. Whoops.
Too short. Let's try one like this. And if you need to get an adult to help you, that's fine. All right, how about like right there? Does that look straight?
Yeah.
So for the sky, we're going to be using something called the wet and wet technique. This is where we're going to begin with our brush loaded with clean water, and we're going to paint in the sky with water first. Then we're going to take our blue and just blob it in around the clouds, because the paper is the white of the clouds, okay? So that's called negative painting, when you paint around the shape instead of painting the shape itself. So let's start with our water. Soak your brush, and you're just going to paint. It's like painting with white over white. Clear water all over your sky. You want it to be glossy, wet, not too dry, and not sopping, not puddled. You might need to wet it twice so that the water has a chance to soak in all the way. Now you can make your cloud shapes any shape you want. Let me show you how I'm going to do mine first. So I'm swirling some blue around in my palette. My paper is wet. Go ahead and grab some blue. And I'm just going to paint that into the sky. Now that's the blue sky. So I have to watch out for some areas where I want some clouds. And if you want to just draw them first, you can do that. And just paint around those clouds with your blue. And you can just go ahead and use up all the paint from your brush in the sky here. And in fact, sometimes when you look at the sky, it seems to get lighter towards the bottom, doesn't it? So if you want to make your sky lighter, you can actually remove some paint with your water and then just kind of swipe your brush at the bottom so it's a little lighter in the sky. Good job. I like those cloud shapes. Now, if you accidentally cover up the whole thing with blue, hopefully you didn't do that. You haven't yet. But if you covered up too much, I think I want more clouds than that. You can actually take your clean, damp brush, so remove most of the water, and lift some clouds back out. See how that works? You don't have to do that because your clouds are perfect.
Thanks.
So there's a couple different ways you can do clouds. Now make sure to rinse your brush and wipe the blue paint on your paper towel before you go back in and lift more. Otherwise you'll just put that paint right back on your paper. But that's a great way to fix a mistake if you just lost some of your white. I like to use the lifting technique for clouds. Helps them look extra soft and wispy. Those are great. Nice work. So we need to let our sky dry all the way before we can paint our ocean. But what we can do is carefully peel our tape off and start on the sand before we paint the ocean. So rinse all the blue out of your brush, dry your brush on your paper towel, set your tape aside.
Maybe I should do this with it. There.
Okay. Now, if you don't have a pencil, that's okay. You don't necessarily need one, but I'm going to grab one for marking where I want to put my sand. I'm going to share a reference photo with you guys so you can see exactly what we're seeing and working from. In this reference photo, the sand is kind of at an angle here, and there's the foam of the water creating a nice little edge. So I'm going to make some bumpy edges of the foam of that water right there. And you can make it any shape you want, but a nice little angle is always a good thing. Don't want it to be too straight across. The water never looks like a perfect straight line, does it?
No.
Makes these little ellipses and bumps along the edge. And make sure there's enough room that you can bring the sand all the way across. That's great. I love it. Okay, so the next step will be to paint the sand. Here we have to be really careful because we're going to be filling in this bottom section of our drawing with the color of the sand, but we don't want that to creep into this white area because that's where the foamy water is going to be. Now, a great way to mix a sand color is to use a warm yellow like this. This is called yellow ochre, or you could take a brighter yellow. Either one is fine. And you swirl it on your palette first with some water, so it's sort of a milky consistency. And then I'm going to take, this is a surprising color, purple, just a little bit, and mix it in with that sand color. And it makes it a little more natural looking. Okay, so I feel like purple and yellow ochre is just the perfect color for sand. I'm going to mix up enough so that you have a whole bunch too. So sometimes it takes a lot of grabbing paint out of your palette and swirling to get enough to make for your whole painting. That should be enough. Okay, you can grab some. And now let's carefully paint in our sand. Use the tip of your brush to paint around your pencil lines, or right up to your pencil lines. That's the nice thing about a round brush. It has a really tiny pointed tip. Makes it easy to work around those edges. If this looks a little dark to you, that's okay. Remember that watercolor dries lighter. So when it starts to dry, it's gonna lighten up. Now you want to try and keep going before that dries, or else you're gonna get an edge there. So even load up more paint on your brush so that you can fill that in as quickly as possible. Great. More paint on your brush helps it go faster. Great. Okay, now we're going to paint a little bit of suggestions of sand in the foam here. In the reference image, you can see how there's kind of these yellow little spots and ellipses where the water is crashing. So we got to be really careful and not too heavy-handed with this. But what we can do is take the tip of our brush and just paint, kind of blob it on the surface of the paper. See that? And it looks like sand with water rushing all around it, doesn't it? And make sure that you're using your brush at almost a horizontal angle. And if it's too dark, dip your brush in the water, remove some on your paper towel, and try it again.
Isn't it like stones in the ocean?
Sometimes. This beach looks pretty smooth. So moving your brush more up horizontally like this. The water lies flat on the surface of the ground, doesn't it? Except where it's a wave, of course. And leave lots of white along the edge here. This is that foam. Yeah, pretty good. All right, let's see if our sky is dry. If it's not dry yet, you can actually speed up the process with a hairdryer or a heat tool. So let's do that really quick. All right, great. Once your sky is bone dry, completely 100% dry, we're going to take another strip of tape, and this time put it right over your sky, lining it up with that edge that you made earlier. You see that? And you only have to press hard right here because we don't want the water to seep under that. Can you guess what we're painting next?
The ocean.
I'm going to use a fresh piece of tape. The fresher the tape, the less likely it will be that I have paint seeping under, because that can happen sometimes. Okay, so for the ocean color, we're going to use this turquoise blue. If you don't have a blue quite like that, you can take a blue like we used for the sky and mix in a tiny bit of yellow, and you'll get that color. So let's load up our brush with turquoise blue now. Actually, wait. Let's do some wet on wet first. I'm going to take some water and put it right here in the middle. You might be wondering why. Just in the middle, not at the top. This I want still to be dry. You'll see why in a minute. So we're just going to put water right in the middle. And that's because I want the turquoise to touch that and to soften and spread. I'll show you how we do that. So I'm going to take a generous amount of paint. Look how thick that is on my brush. Load it up. And I'm going to let my brush miss little spots in the water. See how it's kind of skipping over the paper surface? Try it. And then when we get to the section that's a little wet, it should go a lot softer. Yeah, so you're just lightly feathering it across the paper, scraping, and only go about halfway down the white. Right about to there. Does that look like water already?
It does.
Perfect horizontal brush strokes. You're just pulling sideways, so they're straight across. And you do want to bring your color all the way to the edge, so try to paint all the way up to the edge there, to the side of your paper.
That's what the tape's for.
Yeah, it's protecting your borders, so you have nice pretty borders. All right, so about there's where you want to stop.
Mine's been.
That's great. That looks just like water. Now this color here is a little hard to describe, isn't it? It kind of looks like the color of the sand, but maybe with a little more of the purple in it, but really watery, really light. So I'm actually going to take my purple again and mix it with a little of that yellow ochre again with more water. Lots of water in there. So I have a light purpley yellow color. That's the technical term here. And it needs to be super watery because we don't want it to be too dark. So check on your paper towel first, and that looks great. So now I'm going to take that color, and again, see how light that is? Make horizontal brush strokes just in a single little strip right here between the blue and the white. Yeah, so really light purpley color. And if you want the transition between this color and the blue water to look even smoother, you can take a teeny little bit of that blue that's on your palette and touch it to that. And it looks like it'll blend with the blue a little better. But keep your brush strokes sideways. Pull sideways. So can you hold your brush more like this? Yeah, there you go. That's better.
I just feel like there's a little bit too much light right here.
Okay, so if you feel like there's too much light, rinse your brush out. Dry on your paper towel a little bit, one dab. No, that's too much, more water. Dry one dab. And now swipe across with that water across the top so it all blends together. You can do it even more like this. Yeah, you see how it's kind of filling in those holes? But you don't want all the white to be covered up. Maybe this one over here. And again, hold it like this. Is that better?
Yeah.
A little less choppy? Yeah. Very nice. Now, one more way that we can make the water feel like it's standing up a little bit off the sand, that it has some dimension to it, so we can add a shadow underneath that lip of the water. And for that, we can just take any dark, really. You could take this brownish red and just carefully draw a little bit underneath the edge of that water. So almost like an outline, like what you would do with your Sharpie maybe to outline something, but not the whole thing, just a couple spots. And suddenly it looks like the water is more 3D, doesn't it?
It does.
So hold your brush up more like this, and then you can really use that tip of the brush to outline more carefully. So much of it is just like figuring out how to hold your brush. You can add more light gray for splishy splashies in the water, but it has to be super, super light. That's too dark. So how do you know if it's too dark or too light? Test it out on the palette first. Swirl it around with some water. And you'll quickly see just how dark it is. And then remove some of the water on your paper towel and go in. And keep it horizontal. Yep, sideways brush strokes. Okay, now one last thing we're going to do is make the back water back here where it's further away from us a little darker. So I'm going to take a darker blue this time. This one here is called ultramarine blue. See how it's a little bit of a different blue from what we were using earlier? And I'm just going to take a little of that on the tip of my brush with some water mixed in and swipe along the top, one long swipe right next to the tape. Rinse and remove a little of that and then swipe along that. That's it. So remember to hold your brush like this. So we're just going sideways across. Yeah. Nice. Nicely done. That's about all it needs. Cool. All right, let's see how we did. Let's remove our tape carefully and slowly sideways. Ooh, did you get a nice crisp, perfect skyline? You did. That looks gorgeous. How easy was that?
Very simple.
Straight lines don't have to be hard in watercolor. You can use tape. It's not cheating. All right, now let's remove the rest of our tape, and hopefully we got pretty borders too. Just make sure to carefully peel it close to the paper so you don't rip your paper. Pretty borders. There. Oh, aren't those pretty?
They are.
It's gorgeous. Great job.
I hope you enjoyed painting with us. I hope it turned out great. Be sure to see us next time. Bye.